can,
But don't put that down on purpose, because I've been nervous.
Oh, no, I do. My grandfather and great grandfather.
We got a 1-year-old daughter. So
I think we can get started when you guys are ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
that helps, but
So I think,
still feels a little.
we'll do a quick roll call, but I say we call this meeting to order, huh? That sound good?
Hey, what do we say?
Everybody ready? We'll do the roll call first. We have Julie Jacobs. Yes, and I thought when we go through the roll call, I'll just remind everybody where everybody's from, both for our own benefit and anybody watching on the video an hour later, if that's cool. And if I get it wrong, please correct me. If I get anything wrong during any of this, please correct me. Can I go ahead and do roll
Go
call?
for it. Yes, yes.
So
Thank you.
I'm just doing roll call. Julie Jacobs, who's both our scribe and is from Old North or Lower North.
Old North.
Old North. Is that what
We're
we call
proud
it?
of being old.
Charles Stevenson is from the Confluence area. Wendy Miller, Southsider,
And business owner.
and business owner, and longtime history fact keeper, I believe.
Holder of knowledge.
We have Martin Suslov.
Seuss,
Seuss.
like Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, present. And you're both vice chair. Today's gonna help be timekeeper as well. And lives in the Lions Valley.
Village, south side, I guess,
South side.
but long time unincorporated area resident,
Yes.
about 3 miles up.
Sonny Smith,
Well, yeah.
right there, up in the Lions Valley area. Cindy Fisher from Stone Canyon, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Jen Wingard is our alternate. She's actually traveling today, and I don't know, she was gonna try to log in if she had signal, but she may not. I'm Douglas Matthews, the chair on the upper north side, so on her top of Horizon Drive, so the last house in town limits. I believe on the video, we have our DOT representative there. We have Dave Hamrick. Barney is here from the PCDC, and Andrew's here, is our staff liaison
And I will
special guest.
apologize for Jack. My wife had to go to North Carolina, so I'm on single parent patrol this week.
On time, buddy.
Beautiful. Just to sort of set the stage, so we have an agenda. We're gonna try to get through it as quick as possible. I know for a number of you, extending the time to 2 hours is a stretch. I get it. Hopefully this will be the only time we have to do it. We'll talk about the rest of the schedule, agendas, all of that as we go forward today. But this is really about us today. For anybody listening on the video that's asking a question, I'll say it now and we'll say it again later. We don't have scheduled community input yet today, but certainly as we go through the process, we'll define when that should be and how we want to do it collectively and what input we want to get. The other thing I wanted to touch on before we get started is what the IGA is and what it is not in terms of what our scope of responsibility is. So I've had a lot of people ask that, well, how are you gonna address this? How are you gonna address that? Our scope is strictly to provide guidance and recommendations with regards to the IGA land use document. It's not about creating solutions for the hole in Main Street or the hotel property or how we're specifically going to address infill opportunities. It's really about within the scope of the Lions area of interest, what are the areas where we think should be designated for future development? And what kind of development should that be in a broad sense in terms of capacity, density? But our job is not to design buildings. It's not to do any of that. It's just to determine land use, right? And I've had a lot of people ask about other things that need to happen within town, and I think those will happen once the IGA is set. Does everybody sort of agree with that scenario or have anything they want to add to that? Charlie?
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think it simplifies our work a little bit. But I also
took some time to look through the Thrive comprehensive plan. I think it's critical to ensure that anything that we recommend or any conclusions we come to are support, as long as we agree that that is what the town of Lyons all generally agrees upon, which it looks like they sampled a lot of people to come to those conclusions. As long as this thing doesn't hamstring that, then I think that I'm in agreement with what you're saying. But if this doesn't agree with that, then
I might have the other side of the coin. I'm not sure that all of the Lions agrees with that document.
Okay.
And I know for a fact that document does not agree with the original IGA they were trying to put through. So I'm not really sure I want to make the IGA wider so that it can catch the Thrive document. Because I think we wouldn't have seen them wanting to burn the building down for 2 meetings
If
if they
people agree
really
with it.
agreed with Lions Thrive.
Yeah.
And I'm new to this, so I'm still learning about what the, general consensus is with Thrive, so.
I just don't feel like from that meeting, there was a consensus, and I know when I read that, and I've read it a few times, that Thrive document, I was shocked that that's what they thought all of Lions wanted.
Right.
Obviously, some of Lions wants it, or they wouldn't have done it, but I don't believe it's broadly accepted.
Wendy, did you have?
Well, I would just like to say that the Lions Thrive document was put together by citizens who actually participated in the process. So if the process was put out there for all the public to engage in, and if you didn't engage with it, then your voice wasn't heard.
Well, the only part I saw was that rather ridiculous interactive map where people were clearly choosing pieces of property to put affordable housing on that was nowhere near their house. Or you wouldn't have seen so many recommendations for Sandstone Park and the dog park and Bond Park. They were just trying to get it out of behind their house.
Right.
So I don't know if it was it might have been an intent to be serious, but it didn't turn out very serious.
There,
One, and then we'll just take one more and then we'll move on.
Might I suggest that trying to relitigate the comp plan right now is not within our role, and I think that if we want to offer that as some of the feedback that we give to the town that's
We
not
should do
related to the
that,
IGA, then we can say perhaps the town should look at that process. I agree that it was a very thorough process, but clearly some people don't agree, and that's fine, but I think that if we try to get what we have now is a comp plan,
Yeah.
and the IGA is supposed to be based on this comp plan. The comp plan can be amended at some point in the future, but right now, that's too big.
Yeah.
Our
Our
job needs to
charter
be
is the
small.
idea.
But I was just trying to respond
Yep.
to, he thought
Totally
we should
understand.
make the IGA fit the plan
Well, we have
because
to.
the plan, no, we don't have to. The IGA is the agreement between us and Boulder County. It does not have to fit the plan. It just has to be a good IGA plan.
Right, so we'll get to that, but the follow-up, Julie, with your comments. So you'll notice in the corner of the table, there's some blue Post-it notes and some marker pens. And behind me, there's a whiteboard on the table or on the wall called the parking lot list. Anytime we get in the weeds on a topic, let's scribe it, let's put it on the parking lot list and deal with it when we can.
Right.
Else we'll never get anywhere.
Because we do have the opportunity to give
Correct.
comments that are outside, so that
Yes,
could be.
and so
something
the
that's
other
talked about
one
later.
is Board of Director, BOT topics outside of the scope of IGA. As these things come up, let's capture them, put them on there, and we'll make a different set of recommendations and say, you guys need to address this because there's an issue or whatever. Is that cool? Does that work for everybody?
Excuse me, I just want to say something earlier. I had a board meeting just 2 hours ago earlier in Longmont. And one of the key words that was said in that boardroom, smarter. Work smarter.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get so congested with things. And I just wanted to bring out that word, just to start with our new group.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
okay.
I'm sorry, I need the Wi-Fi code from.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I was
typing that
wondering
right
that
now.
too.
Oh, okay.
Are you trying to get on TOL stat, I guess?
Boardroom,
Might
Boardroom?
magically reconnected.
yeah, man, town.
Boardroom?
Yeah, that's one I just figured, I don't know.
Oh, you almost said
I just need the
Do we have a
Wi-Fi.
password for it?
I don't have a password, no. I think he's trying to-
I wonder if I can see what it is.
There-
now that I'm connected.
Is it town? Is it? I
The
think
Rocky Mountains, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
What is it?
At one time,
So
it
we'll
was
just pause
walking.
for a moment then for that.
The county person is gonna be on the screen.
I think I would assume she is. I can't, you guys will see the screen once he turns his computer back.
Okay, okay, that's the question.
I would think she's on. I saw David was already on.
You got it? So, is it a secret word?
It's longer, so I'll just let y'all pass it around if that's all right.
Can we move on to the agenda
Yeah.
without that?
I
So,
just want to add that I was struggling with our, actual task was or is.
which is our
and-
very first agenda
Yeah,
topic.
basically, back to everybody else's, I think, oh, shoot. I think big picture,
Right,
bottom line, big
Yeah.
picture.
big picture stuff.
What areas are more suitable for development,
Yeah.
what type of development, that's all I got.
And folks, I'll try my best on where I know we're supposed to be following Robert's rules. This is pretty fluid, but if somebody feels like we need to like make a motion or do something, we'll do that. I know we need to do it at the end. I think we have to approve the agenda, so
But Douglas, remember something, don't feel like you're rushing.
I won't, but we have a lot to cover.
Okay.
I just want to get us into the
Okay.
meeting. I just want to get us into the meeting. Yeah, and I want this to be, this whole process to be fast, but not rushed,
Right.
right? But I'm also sensitive to people's time, and I
Right.
just,
Understand.
and I think once we get into the meat, then not only is it gonna be more productive, it's gonna be more fun, and it's gonna be more constructive all the way around. So, the agenda, do we need to go through it, or can I just say, is everybody in agreement with the agenda, and can we have a motion to approve it?
I understand.
Motion to approve.
Yes.
Last
Motion
second.
second.
Approved, everybody, yeah?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. What I wanted to do today was really these first four big topics. Talk about the process that we want to follow in terms of this, the beginning to end, real quickly. I want to talk about the data that we want. And really the second item is what are the issues in the draft IGA that we want to get on the table and discuss the best we can do today. And I have quite a lot of information that I'll share when we get to that kind of help get that ball started. We want to talk about what other data are we going to need that we don't have access to today. And there's probably a lot. I know there's a lot on the websites. People have a lot. I know a lot of you have a lot of historic data that might be somewhat anecdotal. It might be written reports. It might be old discussion notes. It might be old board meetings, whatever. So we want to identify that so Andrew can help us get that together before our next meeting. And then I want to talk about, Martin's going to give us a quick training session on the Boulder County.
Property search tool, does anybody know about that tool?
Property assessment?
It's an
Assessor's
assessor's tool, yeah. It's really good for looking at, I have some hidden tricks that are a little harder to find. I can show you some areas, so when you're looking at parcels, you can really get like more of a 360 view.
You know, and it feels like as we go, if we are struggling with getting that information, Martin can help us get it, or he can help liaison with Andrew on that. So I think that's great to have him on our team. And then the last big topic that I think is critically important, and I think probably half of you, if not more, have mentioned this at some point since we've started, or since this whole thing came about, is how do we want to collect citizen community input, when and in what form? And with the understanding that once we make our recommendations to the board of directors, they will then do whatever they want to do with the IGA, and then their whole process of community input will start as well. So we don't necessarily need to touch every person, but I think given that where we're all located, and given some ideas of doing small sort of neighborhood casual get-togethers, I think we can cover a lot of people and get a lot of data as we go. And I'm gonna hang on to this, so we got it for next week.
Start every meeting by passing the sticky note.
Exactly. So that's the agenda. Everybody cool? So first, the process. So my thought is, we only have a handful of weeks. If we really want to get this done by August 1st-ish.
And that's the official date that we're supposed to make the recommendation.
That's the target date, yeah.
August 1st.
I don't know what the next board meeting is, and once we have our schedule, I'll go back to Holly and request that she puts us on a board meeting. But that's kind of our goal. So there's roughly 6 or so weeks, viable weeks in there. And before we leave today, let's go through the schedule and talk about it. But I see today is getting the groundwork done and deciding what we need to look at. I'd like to see next week being really a discussion about the data that we have and start to drill down on it. Victoria has offered to give us a tour of the properties for anybody that wants to do that. We need at least 4 people to do it, so it can be a public meeting and a forum. If everybody can do it, we will, but we'll just carpool around. The trick is going to be when to schedule that, so we'll get into that as well. So process data collection in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. Community engagement as we start to formulate our thoughts about what our recommendations are going to be. And then maybe a session or 2 on actually crafting and drafting and agreeing on our recommendations. Does that flow sound good? Does anybody want to add or change anything to that basic pathway? Next question about it?
I mean, I guess one thing I would ask is like, what is the flexibility for extension in the event that
I
this
think
is
it's-
requiring more than we need?
Yeah, I think there certainly is that flexibility.
Because like,
Within some reason, if we say, look, we want to continue this to November.
Yeah.
I think that's not,
Sure.
that's a game changer. But if we need an extra couple of weeks, I
Yeah.
don't see why that can't happen.
yeah,
Um,
what is the deadline arbitrary, or is there actually some actual?
Yes and no. The current IGA, which actually expired technically 2 years ago, and has had 2 one-year extensions. It expires in November. I don't know the exact date, November of this year. So the desire and the goal is to have the new IGA in place by then. Once it's out of our hands, I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. It might be quick for the board to do that. They might debate it for 6 months. I have no idea.
I also want to put in a plug for not doing too much extension, because
Yes.
this is supposed to be a
Sure.
contained, really focused process, and this could end up, I mean, if we see like a legitimate need for 1 more meeting, but to pull this
Yeah.
4 more meetings when it's supposed to be 6 to start with,
And it's not really for my schedule either. I'm in.
and that's where
the
mission
amount-
creep happens, because
Yeah.
then we're like, oh, well, we need another week to talk about this whole other thing that isn't central. So I just want
Yeah.
to say that out loud.
And that's why I thought it was important that we concentrate on what our mission is, and it is the IGA. And really, it's pretty narrow in scope. And when we start to talk about the problems with what I feel are the problems or opportunities in the draft IGA, I think it's going to start to break this down into pretty small bites and say, look, we really need to address this or this or this.
So just putting this out there, I'm not a lawyer and I don't always read documents that are written in this particular way. And it's a little bit confusing to understand exactly what the different sections are trying to communicate. And some of it's very broad, like just laying out the structure of the partnership. The reason I bring this up is before we start identifying what the problems are, I think just understanding what, like if we went layman's terms and said A means this, B means this in like 10 minutes, if someone could say section A means this, section B means this, section C means this, that would be really helpful for me. And I think anybody that's watching this or listening to this afterwards could then follow along and fully understand exactly what, and I know there's a lot of sections here, but I think it seems for me silly to try to make recommendations on something and identify problems when I don't understand the basic provisos of the document. So they're legalese. So it's hard to, so if anybody here has a way to convey them in layman's terms very quickly and efficiently, I think that'd be valuable for everybody.
I think we can, let's see if we can work that into what we're doing today.
Yeah.
If not, I'll put it on the parking lot and we'll do it next time.
Okay.
And if we need to, we can have, lost her name, from Boulder County.
Yeah.
We can have.
Anna.
an interview. Anna.
Yeah, it'd be great to have her on the screen so we can just know that she's present.
What's that?
If she could
And-
take, maybe took 30 minutes to go through the ethics
Hey,
code.
hey Doug,
It's encouraging to hear you interpret it that way as a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer.
Oh, you're not a
No,
lawyer?
no, no, I'm saying I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, you're not a lawyer.
So I'm
Good.
trying to understand
Right.
it as a non-lawyer.
It definitely jumps around a lot.
Yeah, and
yeah, hey Doug.
Right.
What- Can you hear me?
Yes, hey,
right, and that's what I generally understood. It's a wall.
we can hear you. Okay.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say, Andrew was gonna cover that in the first meeting, but we ran out of time of going through the IGA and just kind of doing a level set with everybody. So probably is worth 5-10 minute discussion.
Okay.
Or as long as necessary for us all to say, yes, we understand this thing before we move on.
Fair
So
enough.
It's an effort in vain,
Right.
you know, really.
Good point.
Are y'all having trouble hearing each other?
Yeah.
It gets really hot without it, but I think it's. just
Yeah, that's,
really
I thought he said he was a lawyer.
Yeah,
My hearing's
Let's
not so
not-
good anyway.
yeah, please don't misunderstand that.
I played one on TV.
Yeah.
All right, well, then if Andrew is comfortable with, can you comfortable with taking a few minutes and talking through that? Sure. Sort of the structure of the IGA? Is that good with everybody? So we're in agreement on that?
Yeah, and if there's anything that's in here that's sticky or tricky that could be misinterpreted by us and or lawyers or people that are powers that be, like, I just would like to zoom in and make sure that that section can't be then utilized for nefarious purposes in the future. Like if there's an area that we do need to really dive into and understand and make sure that it is the right language for what it is we're saying, which is, you know what I mean? If there's particular areas that are sticky, like that aren't obvious, it'd be good to zoom in on it.
Sure. Yeah, so much of the language that you see here, if y'all had an opportunity to look at the 2012 from last meeting. So what you'll see, a lot of the recitals, a lot of the technical language have been brought over from that original document itself. There was an effort by Boulder County's land use attorneys and their planners, and us as well, town staff, to try to consolidate where we could and make this a shorter document. The original was sometimes cumbersome and it was too long. So really what this, in a nutshell, what we're looking at here is what pieces of land, what parcels are going to stay within Boulder County, and what parcels will Boulder County allow for the town of Lyons to plan to, at some point, and this is a 20-year document, so within the next 20 years or the next, 100 years, this just sets up that opportunity for what parcels can come in. The other big, the other big agreement out of this document is that within our planning area, Boulder County will not acquire any open space to further kind of close this network around us. And it also says that the town of Lyons will agree not to annex any properties within this area that are not within our plan area. And you'll see on page 2 those definitions. So the PAA, or the potential annexation area. So again, that's really what we're looking at. These parcels that were originally brought in front of the community. Those are the new parcels to that area that could be annexed. So those are really what we're really looking at. David Kimmett, when he started these, it was originally to try to go as broad as possible. So these have been negotiations to bring that broadness down to what parcels are highly contiguous to the town and would be within reason of getting utilities to.
Okay, sorry, I need a clarification.
Sure.
So when I look at the map, the purple line is the Lyons planning area and the IGA boundary. And then within that, there's green area they call rural preservation.
Yes.
But it is inside the green line. So, I mean, the purple line. So
Sure.
I'm not really sure because Boulder County only says they won't interfere if it's outside the line.
That's correct.
So what would a green preservation mean if it's inside the
Yeah.
line?
Yeah, so green rural preservation are areas that we're not agreeing to annex. The only areas that can be annexed by the town through this IGA is everything in yellow. So everything in green are within our plan area and the IGA boundary, but they are not parcels that the town really cares to annex, nor does Boulder County want it allowed to be
Okay,
annexed.
so even though it's inside the purple line, it cannot be developed.
How it's
If
written
it's
right now,
green.
that's correct.
Because here's where I ran into trouble and felt like I had to be here. When you look at that document, the housing document, there are two areas that are green here and they have plans for houses. So that's where I got really confused and tried to get it explained at the burn the town down meeting.
Yeah,
And I'm still confused.
and there were never plans for development of green parcels.
Okay, I can show you the plans that you guys published online from that
Okay.
document, if they certainly are
Okay.
considered building sites.
Yeah, and Cindy, to,
Projects, this is
So,
going to be.
We should park that, like, it's,
Well,
this is something we wanna
So
look
I'm
into.
trying to
Yeah,
understand
I wanna-
what do, because to me, these definitions are kind of the crux of the issue.
Yeah.
And which supersedes, what's true? Is it what we agree with Boulder County, green is green and it stays green?
Right.
Or it can turn a little yellow?
Right.
well, then the one, and this is why we have to define what the problems are with the IGA, right? Because Cindy, I 100% agree with you. The biggest discrepancy is when you look, and I have it documented here, we'll go through it in a few minutes. When you look at the 2012 map, and then you look at the comprehensive plan map, and then you look at the 2024 map, those don't jive.
They don't.
And there's significant properties that moved from rural preservation to now medium and high density
Right.
It's like they're on their
annex
way.
properties, and it's there. That's where we have to say, why is this done? So that's one of the problems that we have to solve.
So what maps are not lining up? The IGA,
Two
this
thousand
one,
and twelve IGA map,
right?
even if you just compare the two thousand and twelve IGA map with the 2024 draft IGA map,
This one.
there's some meaningful differences in there.
But isn't
Okay.
that what the new IGA is about? Is about changing the original, seeing what alterations we want to make to the original map, so they shouldn't be the same.
Well, they shouldn't necessarily be the same. The challenge is that we've taken, and now we're getting into the specifics, which is what we need to
Sorry.
define, but
Right.
there were significant areas of rural preservation that were changed to be either low to medium, which is 6 to 12, or medium to high, which is 12 to 16
You're talking about
units per
density.
housing
Yeah.
density unit. And development units. And in the earlier IGA, I have 3 pages of documents for it. In the earlier IGA, it was very specific about balancing land use and environmental and risk factors and utility access and water
Which one
lines.
would you like?
The,
I want it back. That's the
here's all, those are all
IGA,
3.
most recent.
Those are all 3 maps. That's what we have to look at. Should it change? Yes.
That's the point
Or
of the
could
new
it,
IGA,
could it
right?
change? Yes, it may or
That's
may
the
not change.
comprehensive
But
plan.
Are the changes that were
Green goes to
made
yellow.
correct in our collective perspective?
Green shouldn't go.
Or
yellow.
should we make a recommendation to the board that they should consider?
I just want to
one
be
thing
sure it's
versus
clear that
another?
they're not supposed to be the same map. It's a new IGA that's
Yeah.
supposed to be outlining new areas that we might consider annexing that we changed our minds about over the last 10 years.
Right.
This is a dynamic process. We're not trying to just get the same IGA every year.
Correct.
So comparing them would be
But
really
the
fun.
comprehensive plan does show rural preservation changing over.
Okay.
However, rural preservation is in Boulder County. I mean, this is still Boulder County right here. And
This is not. You guys are putting
Down
it over
here is-
here and over here. They're inside the purple line.
are you looking at, I can't,
Okay, you can borrow my big map.
I know, I need big maps.
Never shoots that level.
No, we should get big
I
maps.
So-
have it, my big map.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to see those little maps.
And
I
then
got it at
somewhere
the
behind
burn
you, right
that
behind you.
state meeting.
Right behind you are the big maps.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
the
big
really
maps.
map.
This is why, yeah, David,
No, I was just gonna say Hannah's had her hand up for a while. She may want to
Nobody
say
can
Oh,
something.
we can't see because the TV is not on.
She's not on the monitor.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Hannah. Yeah,
We can hear you, you just can't see it.
Maybe
Okay.
just call in if you've got a,
No, she's on.
she's on.
Right, or I mean, announce. that you've got
Caller.
a- Yeah,
Well,
call in.
I don't want to interrupt too much, but the question that I heard that I think I can answer about the various maps and which one is sort of going to I guess rule, like which one do we actually is enforceable, right?
Yeah.
Most comprehensive plans, most adopted, say, housing studies, those sorts of things, they are not, they're not regulatory documents. They're advisory to decisions folks make. So your board of trustees might use those documents to inform their decisions, but they're not regulatory documents. What is different and beneficial about the intergovernmental agreement is it provides a sort of legal agreement that is enforceable in both directions, right? So it helps take what's in your housing study, what's in your comprehensive plan, what's in our plans, and create some stronger cross accountability.
That makes
So that's,
sense.
I mean, that's one of the major advantages of having an intergovernmental agreement is many of these other documents are advisory in nature only and not enforceable in any specific or particular way. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much for that. Wendy.
I think we also need to take, I don't know if you guys had taken a look at the Lions Master or Primary Planning Area document. That document is a master plan, including that, it includes the IGA in that document and the comprehensive plan as well. It's kind of like a collaboration between all of it.
So the Lions primary planning area
LPPA,
document?
that's what
Okay,
it-
because that's something I'll put on section C of what
Yeah.
data we need.
Yes.
It is online on the town website, with, table contents and all that, so. It's helpful, I think, to understand how these two documents merge. And how we need to look at it in a much broader,
Holistic.
yes,
Mhm.
approach.
That is duly noted as additional data for us to look at.
So just a thought or a observation. If this is going to, if the IGA plan is going to determine what Lions will have access to from a land perspective for a long period of time, legally bound, then to me, it makes sense to try to get as much land into this as possible without super defined, usage of that land, except allowing for highest and best use, such that then the more specific, non-legally binding comprehensive plans and whatever else gets created amongst consensus in the community can then be utilized to more carefully utilize that land. But if in this agreement, we hamstring ourselves by not giving ourselves the opportunity to get as much land as possible, then it's almost like, who cares later on, because we're legally bound to a smaller footprint. And so why wouldn't our overall goal just be like, try to grab as much land from the county as possible with the broadest usage as possible, as long as it's.
Do you want to look like Berthoud?
Yeah.
That would be why.
I just don't, no, but then we could then later on deem it as
That's
non-developable.
probably what they said in
right?
Berthoud.
I don't know what
You
Berthoud
can't
is.
find Berthoud anymore. It used to be an adorable little town, and
Right.
now it's on all sides, not
Right.
farmland anymore. It's new
Well,
tract housing.
No, but my point is being missed, which is
I
that.
don't think so.
No.
I'm not
Yeah.
missing.
Well, let me try to,
My
let me try
point
to.
is that by identifying land that is our choice to then develop and or not develop, we have choice of it versus, I'm not saying that anything that we grab means it's gonna have tract
Absolutely
housing.
not.
I do not agree. I like the 4 precepts of the comprehensive plan of Lions to be maintained. I think they're really elegant in nature. I think that they do a good job of preserving what it is that we have and yada, yada. But allowing for growth, like, let's at least have the ability to have a shot at that land for either preservation or development or whatever makes the most sense to preserve lions.
So let me try to synthesize
Yeah,
what you're
sure.
saying, just
Yeah.
to make sure I'm hearing you and everybody else is.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's a lot of question about should we get this land in our primary planning area or not. Most of what is being discussed and most of what people are having angst about is the same land that was in the earlier primary planning areas, and it's the same area now. There's very little expansion of what's in the primary planning area.
Yeah.
It's the changes to the designations of some of those without consideration of all the remaining factors, right? It's easy to say, here's 30 acres and we want affordable housing, or we want this, or we want to use Holly's idea just to take it out of the realm of a specific, we want a hospital.
Yeah.
Let's build a hospital there without thinking about everything else that's around it.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I think when we get into looking at the maps, and that's why it's so important to look at the maps, we'll see this isn't about a land grab.
Yeah.
It's about land use. And what do we, as a town, want to direct the board to do in terms of land use? Where do we want to see our resources go? Why is one spot more logical than another? Why is one safer? Why is one more consistent? Why is one smarter than the other? And that's what we're trying to do. When we take the tour, I think we're gonna see a lot of land that is really prime and consistent. And when we start to look at all the different studies, and I know Wendy has a lot of this, a lot of them focus to the same, it keeps focusing back to the same thing. There's a lot that can be done in the East Corridor. And a lot of the studies show that, and that's why we have to kind of get into the weeds on the plan once we get farther along.
We also have to remember that these parcels are privately owned, so the people that own these parcels don't necessarily have to annex into town. They have to start the annexation process, and ask the town basically if they can join the utility. So, and that's a whole nother process in and of itself that's very complicated. And I think that that would be helpful if we could get Victoria in here to do a brief overview of that process for everyone, or you, you know, just because when I was first getting into this, you know, show. That was one of the hardest things for me to grasp, because nobody explained it to me. And I just had to like kind of figure it out as we went, kind of thing, by asking questions. And the zoning, you know, there's zoning laws and there's annexation and how that process works, and what's zoned in the how zoned in the county doesn't necessarily, like, it has to be. Stop me if I'm wrong, David, and you guys, but doesn't the zoning have to happen prior to annexation?
At the same time.
Same
No,
time.
so,
That's the hard part.
It's annexed, and then normally you handle that business the same night if it's established zoning.
Got it, okay, yeah.
Do people want to be compensated, or they want to be bracketed, or they want to be taxed and compensated? Or do they?
No compensation, it just has to do with being able to connect to town utilities.
Yeah, they actually are paying through their utility
Yeah.
connections.
Because right now they're on septic and, you know, cisterns and stuff like that.
And have to, and
If they wanna annex, they have to hook up to town utilities and pay
They
money to do
But-
that.
Just to bring it back, so I think we should have this thing about annexation so people understand it. But again, the scope of the IGA is not about whether we should or shouldn't annex a particular piece. It's
Right.
about whether or not we want that
That's
piece
not a
designated
choice.
as a potential annexation area.
got it.
And if we do, what basic requirements? So let me just explain it, because I think this will answer your question.
Yeah, just the summary.
So if you look at the current draft IGA,
Right.
on page, it starts really on page 4 and goes into page 5. It's talking about various potential annexation area parcels, and they're named based on the owners or former owners. And with each one, it defines some criteria for that land of what an annexation would look like. I think that idea of a definite, I'll come back to you, Andrew, that idea of a definition is good. Whether or not these are good definitions or logical is a topic that we need to get into the weeds on when we do our analysis. But that's what the document should say is this parcel of land, we're interested in potentially annexing it. Is that a word?
Annexing.
Annexing it. I added that syllable every time. Annexing it in the future, and if it does get annexed, these are the requirements of it.
And those are the requirements that you'll be legally bound to, because these are all
Yes.
residential designations.
If
So
if
a
it's in the
hospital doesn't fit in
document,
that.
if it's in the document, that's the way it would be,
Okay,
yeah.
so.
The
and that-
old
yeah.
IGA didn't have that kind of specificity. On the map, it designated the types of density, but it didn't specifically have it in the document.
Okay, and then I guess one other question is, there's only about 5 or 6 parcels here. That's it. There's nothing else
Yeah,
that could
there's not that
that can
many.
ever be added on
Not
to
under the term of
the
this.
municipality.
It's only the yellow, right?
I'm sorry?
It's only the yellow that at this.
The
point-
bright yellow on the 2024 draft map, the bright yellow are the areas of possible, whatever it's saying down there.
Yeah, so this one here,
Yeah,
those are the only places for 20 years that they'll allow.
it's a just to correct me, it's a 10-year document with an automatic renewal if we don't
Okay,
change it.
so 10 to 20 years,
Yeah.
this is it for.
Before Barney, Andrew, did you have a correction or?
That's not a correction, on the housing notes, in the current IGA. So Boulder, it's important to note that Boulder County also has comprehensive plan goals.
Right.
And those comprehensive plan goals do have affordable housing as a component. So again, in negotiations, it's important to understand that, if the town is getting something, annexable property, taxable property, Boulder County reasonably, because we're partners, they should also be able to address some of their comprehensive plans, goals as well. So those are where those affordable housing, goals come from. Because, is a good, well, that's fine, it's y'all's meeting, but that's where those come from.
And Barney had an ad.
Before we get too convinced, it's an absolute document, legally enforceable by law, which it is. There's also a provision that says changes can be made by mutual consent. So if something turns out to be just ridiculous because,
It's
a
negotiable.
big hole opens up or something, it can be changed by mutual consent.
Well, and I actually, if I could jump in here quick second about
Yes.
the affordable housing piece. The early discussions around growth in Lyons and the town's desire to kind of add more area to that were centered on the fact that the town wanted more housing and particularly affordable housing. So the text was developed with both the town and the county sort of focus on affordable housing in mind. This is not something that I think the important thing that I want to underscore is this has been a collaborative development of this document. And historically in the town of Lyons, one of the reasons that folks were supportive of this agreement is because the nature and rate and how fast and how many housing developments and whatnot was of real concern to the town. So the IGA allows growth to happen incrementally, intentionally, to meet certain goals at a certain amount of time. I think it's one thing that's important to know about the IGA is the planning area boundary inside of it. Those green areas that we say, this is within our planning area, someday they might be our future, but right now they're not, right? So it's over the course of 20, 30, 40 years into the future, I think we might expect as the town grows, maybe expands water service, that some of those properties on the edge of town that are green at that point in time might become yellow because the town's continued to grow in an intentional outward manner, meeting its needs that it's identified at whatever point in time. So again, the IGA is a document that allows us to ensure those outcomes that we've, collaboratively identified.
Thanks for clarifying.
All right, can I just ask you a quick question? When they do the draft, do they usually do this type of draft every 10 years? For the comprehensive draft to plan out, like they did this to 2012.
Yeah.
And they sort of, they planned this
Every 10 years.
every 10
It's
years.
supposed to be every 10 years, always late.
Is it, does it usually cost the town a lot of money?
Well, to the extent we use consultants and outside services, legal services, it can. It can cost thousands, but
Well, I just wonder about that because I just want to get the type of expense and how much it costs us to do that.
if this group works effectively, it would actually save the town a good deal of money.
Okay, I thought I just asked that. Well, I thought I asked that because, because I was just trying to get an idea of a picture if it was done in 2002 and then 2012, and then here it is 2024, and now moving forward.
Like set us back, sure.
Huh?
The flag,
So that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah.
That,
and pushed it back like 3 years, I think.
yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the 12th year, but
Okay.
I have heard that the thinking is that you should think 20 years, even though it should be revised every 10 years.
Okay.
So maybe this is an idea for the parking lot or just something that we can discuss at a different time, but like just if we're gonna work really effectively and be representatives of the general community, like the general community is gonna need to quickly understand this document and all the other ones. And so it almost needs kind of like a rebrand of some kind to like explain to people what it is that we've all now kind of gained understanding of, or at least I've gained understanding of as someone who's just started to understand all this stuff, and like plainly said bullet points, here's what the purple line is, here's what the green is, here's what the yellow is, totally. Yes, there is,
Legend.
I get the legend, but like understanding the legend doesn't mean I understand what this stuff means. There's a lot of jargon in there.
But I'm trying to get it so I can explain to everybody what allows town on it.
Exactly.
So I gotta be the.
Right, so we need to somehow be able to convey what the heck this document is in layman's term versus what the document, the comprehensive Thrive plan is in layman's terms, and how and whatever else there are, whatever else documents there are, so that we can, help people understand what it is we're talking about here. Otherwise, people get all tied up in, little nuanced arguments that are unrelated to this work or whatever the next thing is.
so that's captured, if everybody's in agreement, as a parking lot item of, quote, rebrand the IGA for better community understanding.
Right.
And whatever that
Or
means.
maybe not rebrand it,
I think he was asking for like a one sheet maybe of information to make it more digestible, not.
in the most plain,
Sure.
written language, yeah.
Is there any way to get representation for Apple Valley? I know they feel always wanting to be captured and never having a voice.
Well, if they couldn't be on the,
Right.
David, maybe you can chime in if I answer this question wrong, but
Sure.
They're always
it was discussed
representing.
pretty heavily and debated pretty heavily
Right.
with the board. And ultimately it came down to it, because the board is elected by the voting people of town, that they didn't feel it was appropriate for them to put somebody on a task force that hadn't voted.
Yeah, but they are always on here to be.
Exactly.
Captured, and they don't want to be, so
Yes.
they should have some voice, or you're gonna hear the torches
Totally.
burning down the town again.
So when we get, I think that, and Wendy brought this up, I think the very first time we communicated, and I think a couple of you also did, is this is about getting community input. I think we have to get a little farther along ourselves so that we're able to process it. a little bit better. But I want to talk about some ideas of how to specifically get Apple Valley, all the kind of the Steamboat Valley folks outside of town up there are have very strong voices, the south side. There's a lot, and I think we have such a fantastic representation of the town. When I was going through it and checking off where everybody lived and then looking at everybody's background, both the professional and the variety of our backgrounds, where we all live, really captures the whole town. And if we can't use our own power to get people engaged in this, then we failed. So I think.
I just wasn't sure,
100%
like,
agree.
because of that legality, I don't even know. I'm like, I know, I've heard the complaints.
Well,
but
they're
I don't know
totally
how
impacted.
to-
I mean, there's a parcel of
Yeah.
land on there
Uh-huh.
that went from rural preservation to potential annexation and then crossed out with no development.
Right.
That that landowner is very upset
Oh, really?
that his
Okay.
property got changed and nobody even talked to him about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we need
Yeah.
those people to have a voice,
Thank
and
you.
they're outside of town, so
Yeah.
they're not voting, or they
Right.
can't vote,
Right.
right? So it's really, it's a very, very important thing for anybody that's watching this video later. Like, that's what started this task force. That's what caused this task force, is people didn't feel like they had a voice.
Revolutionary war type stuff. I mean, really, come on.
It is, right? But again, our scope is pretty narrow, right? So I think as we get into it, it's gonna be about this document, not about all the other related opportunities there are, right?
And we have to be able to say, like, look, that topic is not within the scope of what this
Correct.
discusses.
Yeah.
And that said, maybe another task force needs to be created to discuss that topic, post IGA, acceptance. Or whatever you
Right.
call it,
So let's do a quick process check. By the way, if anybody needs a break, or I think everybody knows where the restrooms are. If you need to stand up or you're more comfortable standing or walking, do whatever. This is our meeting. It's us. It's about us, right? So
Thanks, brother.
do what you need to do. We talked about process. We talked kind of about what the IGA means, but I think coming up with a bullet point document would be good. I would be happy to take that on. I can work with Andrew. We can get some input from David and Barney, I'm sure, and come up with, and Hannah, and come up with a one-page bullet point. This is what the IGA document is. This is what it is not.
Right.
And so we'll try to pull that together for the next discussion.
With the audience being the average person in
Yeah.
town who does not know what a rural preservation area is or annexation means. They should just be able to really understand it.
Yeah.
I think that's really critical.
Noted as an action item.
Noted as an action item. Fantastic, thank you. Would it be helpful if we went through some examples of some challenges in the IGA document right now, or would that overwhelm everybody, or would that be beneficial to hear some?
Are everybody fully clear on what exactly IGA is? I mean, he started talking about it and then kind of started going down some different rabbit holes. Are we, is it?
Are you
do
here?
are you-
Have any questions?
I mean, like, I get the purple line, I get the yellow and the green now. I mean, I get that it's only 5 parcels that we're deciding on and that there's a designation for affordable housing within those. And that it's a collaborative document that was agreed upon by Boulder County and us. And we're just kind of looking at the final draft of it. Like, if there's anything else that I'm missing apart from that, is there anything?
No, I think that's a pretty clear picture. Again, with the really important mission here is finding out which properties are appropriate. That's really a big part of this mission. Any staff directives you can send my way, but that's.
Yeah. David, do you have anything you want to add at this stage?
I would just add that I would not limit yourself to those properties that are in the document, in the draft. I think
Right.
if there's others out there that make sense to be discussed, then it's worth looking at.
And I think you said it, Wendy, we have to remember that these properties, most of these properties are privately owned. I think that's an important note, but we also know that 10 years from now, they may sell it, or they may, the reason 2 of these properties are on the list is because the owners passed away. And their heirs are interested in developing the land. That's the only reason those two of the questionable properties are on the list.
So is Connor and what, Boone?
Boom. We're interested in selling it, subdividing it, putting it just under the
Mhm.
legal limit for a town vote.
Yeah, and that was another
And then
burn it down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have a table that those burn it down people put online and everything says 5 acres. It's very suspicious.
Yeah.
Because that means the town doesn't get to vote not to take it. There's a lot of mistrust and you can almost see why.
That's a perfect segue into what you just said, right? So
Yep.
one of the clear areas for discussion for this IGA is that
5
that perceived
Yep.
circumvention of the 5 acre rule. And I think that is like the super obvious low hanging fruit. And I bet if we made that parcel 5.1 acres, no one would care and we could pass this.
I don't know if
IGA.
Yes.
nobody would care, but it certainly would get easier.
And
So that's
for,
on here as a point of.
for all of you and for the general public that could be listening or watching later, there is a request for an amendment to update that 5 acre rule, working its way through the board. I don't know exactly when it's gonna come up. I can't remember if it's on the next agenda or 2 or 3, but I think it is working its way up. So stay tuned on that topic.
It's hamstrung us before with the affordable housing part. That's why it didn't, we had to go to vote. That's why it passed.
Right.
So
Right. So that 5 acre rule is important.
there's a good part and a bad part.
Um,
in the 5 acre rule.
So does anybody have any other specific things they'd like to talk about on the draft IGA, or would it be helpful if I gave
I have.
some clarity on what's in the new one and why it's problematic? Would that be helpful to people?
Well,
Or do you wanna
just
go
have
first?
properties that we need to take a look at.
You have specific property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to write those down now or if we should wait until we're further down.
Well, I think, kind of what my thought was on this topic was let's throw all the spaghetti on the wall
Okay.
and then we'll
Six.
and see and then we'll filter it together. But that's at least go, I'm concerned about this, that, and the other property. I'm concerned about the inconsistency of the maps. I'm concerned about what annexation means or whatever. Let's just get those all. I think the only way we're gonna be able to make some of this progress is if we can create these data lists. We can then take them, sort them out, put them in logical things and get them back out to all of us so that we can be thinking about them between now and the next meeting. So I'd love to just go ahead and capture them and get them done out, you're keeping the loop.
Yeah, so Eastern Corridor specifically, because we've already worked on the Eastern Corridor quite a bit. Barney knows. But you have annexed by flagpole, so there's properties out there that we can't necessarily annex in even if the property owner wanted to, because it's not contiguous with another property. That has town utilities already, but Shady Lanes, we actually went to the Boulder County at one point when I was on the board with Connie Sullivan and talked to them about potentially adding this Shady Lanes into the IGA because for affordable housing specifically at that point in time, because it is affordable housing right now. It's almost entirely affordable
What's
housing.
Shady Lane?
Mobile homes.
Oh, it's just a-
It's like, do you know where Grace Design is? The yellow building, they used to be the honey store.
Oh, yeah, North Honey
Or
Store.
Mount Hava, okay, so it's next to,
There's a bit of a field, right?
yeah, it's like, well, there's houses in there with a bunch of junk.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about? And then there's another road. that
North
goes
side.
Are
heading out.
you talking
north
about
side?
where the
Yeah.
nursery used to be?
Yes,
Past that,
Past the nursery.
Back
So
down.
how about where the town building is?
past
Past
that.
that, okay.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
town
so now I do
building.
know where the junk and the buildings
Mount
are.
Hava, yeah, so
I'm there.
that
Those are the
whole
north side.
area,
Yeah.
if you turn left at
Northeast.
the Starbucks or
Mhm.
whatever, where Gwen's greenhouse used to be,
Uh-huh,
there's a dirt road that goes back there
okay.
and it ends up through
That's
Shady
the-
Lanes. It
Okay.
goes through Shady Lanes and back out to the highway.
Mhm.
And it's a dirt one-lane road for a little bit of the way back there.
And
Is
it's
it not,
multiple owners,
it's
I
not
take it?
in the map right now,
No,
isn't it? It's not that green parcel.
see, that's where we need to.
I don't I don't
Is-
think so.
is
No,
it?
it's just,
Oh, you wouldn't
it's
know
to the
either.
right of that. I
So
believe.
it's further. you're
It's
saying
farther
Further
east.
out here?
Yeah,
Okay, well, let's capture Shady Lane, look at Shady Lane, that's a.
and
that's
there's
a
tons of
property.
money out there right now for mobile home,
Yes.
Development, tiny
development.
house development, yeah.
well, not tiny homes, mobile homes, HUD appointed manufactured mobile homes.
Awesome.
Marigolds, not strawberries.
Yeah, it
You
is
said
like,
strawberries.
it is something, or maybe Zim
Right.
rolls, we go by that every time we go by.
Well, I'm sorry,
Starbucks,
I'm
but
sorry.
it's not that far.
Excuse me, Zen gold.
Yeah.
Zengle's,
Marigold's the
So
restaurant.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So many things in
Sorry.
life.
But way out here.
There is a point about the Eastern Corridor, because the 5 acre rule actually was changed to 10 acre rule for the Eastern Corridor, based on town vote. And the town voted in favor of the 10 acre rule as opposed to 5 acre rule.
Can I ask, because I'm too new to have been here when they made Eastern Corridor a thing. Where does the Eastern Corridor start on this? When you talk about the Eastern Corridor, where,
There is a specific designation, and it's a little different in different places. It's not unusual from.
It's around the distillery, isn't it? Doesn't it?
Well, some go from the Stone Canyon,
Stop.
crossover
okay,
on out, some from the distillery on out, and then others from the 3666 interchange out. So it's referred in different, at different times, different extent of that.
so can I request when we talk about the Eastern Corridor, we're specific, because again, I'm the Stone Canyon people, and some of this might matter more to me than the rest of it, so if you're talking about the Eastern Corridor, if you could tell me where, it would be helpful.
It's always gonna be past the 3666
Oh, wait,
interchange
okay,
when we're talking
Okay.
about Eastern
all
Corridor.
right.
And what do you call the part from,
You pump it to the light.
Yeah, from McConnell.
from the, yeah,
Stone Canyon to 66.
what do
You
we call
pump
that?
it to
Is
3666.
that the, there's another, like, there's a
Lions Valley
mid-
Park
mid-
area.
St. Vrain
McConnell.
River area or something, isn't there?
That does sound familiar, St. Vrain Corridor.
Do you know, Andrew
I don't.
or Barney or David, do you know what we're talking about? I don't know if you heard the question.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So we're trying to understand when we hear Eastern Corridor, we're understanding that to technically be from the 3666 intersection and eastward. But what do you call the section from McConnell, the McConnell stoplight to that 3666 intersection? What is,
We used to call that, what was that, Barney, Midtown?
Middletown.
Yeah.
We
what,
kind of
Middletown?
Midtown,
Shall we use
but
that for our definition amongst this group?
Midtown.
That doesn't really ring right off your brain as Middletown, but I can do
it's not,
it.
it's not downtown. It's not downtown and it's not the Eastern Corridor.
Okay, so it's in the
Suburban
middle.
lighting.
So that's for the purposes of this group.
McConnell area is what I
We're gonna call it
call it.
Midtown.
For the purposes of this group, we'll call Midtown
Okay.
from the McConnell Light to the 3666 intersection.
Okay.
Right.
And we'll call everything east of that, the Eastern
Eastern
Corridor.
Thank
corridor.
you.
And those areas are very related.
So,
They are.
because when you think of the old, so then what I want to call bonsai,
Yeah,
I'll call it bonsai.
okay, we're talking about, are we talking about the florist or the vendors or?
Yeah, because what you call Gwen's Gardens, I mean, you call it Gwen's
Yeah,
Gardens.
that's what I
But-
love to,
Because when you're talking about of that dirt road that's behind that, that's still what we're talking about.
Okay.
Because
That's Eastern Corridor.
yeah,
that's the Eastern
yeah.
corridor. And that's a property that's back there. Now, how many acres is that, Barney?
That's Shady Lane, so it's.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we're talking about, yeah.
And that's property,
Probably 7 or 8 acres.
Yeah, I think it's just.
right, and that's property that we were talking about. That's viable property that we're talking about.
So we,
Douglas, have you seen that property? Have you been back there?
I've been down that road, but I haven't been in the trailer park. I think we turned past it, or I can't remember how.
Okay.
But that's why we need a field trip. But to keep this process rolling, bear with me. So we've got, we're gonna review and learn more about the Shady Lanes area. We've got a definition now of East Corridor. We have a definition of Midtown. Anything else in the document itself that you feel like we need to address, either general or specific?
The Lucanen, I don't know if Lucanen's in there, probably is.
Lucanen, there's several Lucanen.
The one right at 36 and 66, kind of that triangle. I can't,
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one with all of the red.
oh, yeah, I see it, yeah.
There's just a few places that red, otherwise it's camping and something else.
Yeah. it should be,
Hey,
Yes,
yeah, I just wanted to add something. Hannah posted some which triggered a memory. So Eastern Corridor, when we did the comp plan, we changed the term to call it East St. Vrain, just to be consistent with South St. Vrain. So just so if you're reading the comp plan, it's interchangeable. East St. Vrain equals Eastern Corridor. And it was to try to stay consistent with, there's North St. Vrain, there's South St. Vrain, and East St.
Okay.
Vrain.
Well, that makes sense.
okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
Wendy, anything else?
not off the top of my head now.
Can I ask something you said about telephone poles? So it has to be
It's called a
contiguous.
flagpole.
Okay,
Yeah.
flagpole.
Same idea.
It has to be, maybe, telephone poles might have been better, but, so I think you're saying that you cannot annex something if it's isolated.
Correct.
It has to somehow have
Touch.
another,
Or
Yeah.
having.
One
Okay.
sixth of the property to be annexed has to be contiguous to
Okay.
the already.
Screen, it's gonna be
Alright,
hard.
thanks.
1/6.
1/6.
1/6.
So if it's 100 acres, then
We
you
can
can have
plan
like, what's that?
Yeah, I could.
Say the definition again, or continuous again.
So in order to be eligible for annexation, you have to have what's called 1/6 footing. So 1/6 of that border is to border town limits.
Okay,
So we've got, right now, in the Eastern Corridor, we've got one annexation that's been submitted. We've got two others that are waiting for this one to be approved, so
So they
they
can annex too.
okay, okay.
Dare I ask where? Or
Eastern corridor.
can you say where? In the Eastern Corridor?
Sure.
I mean, I didn't know if that was like private information when somebody applied.
Everything's public, so it's, let's see, where's the
People-
My head's in it.
No, you're fine. It's these two properties right here, this
Okay.
small one right here and
This is
right
sort
here.
of the closest, almost.
Yeah, it's right across from the intersection.
Okay, thanks.
And then there's interest from most property owners within that area to come into town once they're contiguous.
I just want to add that Shady Lane is officially 4651 Highland Drive. If you were to look it up on property. search.
4661 Highland Drive.
Correct. And there's a bunch of different manufactured housing accounts on it when you go on the property search.
And is it one property owner or is it a host of property owners?
Yeah, what happens is one property owner for the whole piece of land, and then all the people with the MHs are renting space from him. Typically,
Do they own their mobile homes?
yes,
Okay.
they should. Not always, but most of the time. It's almost like a condo situation.
Land lease.
Because that matters for some of these state programs regarding.
That's not a septic system out there.
Shady Lane is designated as an area that can be annexed in the IGA already, just as a heads up. So the IGA wouldn't preclude sort of the town annexing and future, doing more manufactured housing out there, if that's what was desired.
So it doesn't show up on the IGA map, but it is already an agreement with the county, is that what you're saying?
Well, the IGA only does so many things, right? It says, here's what could be annexed by the town and developed for their needs, and here's what may not. And for properties like Shady Lane, it says the town can annex it if the town wants to kind of redevelop it into a more robust mobile home park. That's up to the town. The other thing I think that's important to note about annexation is generally annexation is not something that's compelled by local government. It's requested by a property owner. So you would really need to have a property owner that was interested in annexing into the town, interested in maintaining those mobile homes. Or like we've done in the IGA, the IGA could say something like, make specific requirements about what the town wants to see on that piece of property should it come in. So that's where those like parcel specific requirements come in. The IGA does give an opportunity to design that at this point in time.
And Hannah, is that, because that wasn't in the old one, I think it feels like a very good thing that there's specific requirements. Is that unusual in other IGAs, or is that typical, or is that something that's kind of being used more frequently?
There really isn't a typical IGA, because there's a general format that we use that says, here's what we do with these comprehensive development plan IGAs. We designate areas for development, and we designate areas that are not going to be developed in the term, under the term, the timeline of the IGA. Each community has various different sort of issues or needs that might be expressed in the IGA in different ways. I think the 2012 IGA had some language, some site-specific language on the Lucanen parcels that says we're not going to put certain types of uses here. So it's definitely not unusual. And what it does over time is really flag to developers, or, we could use the Shady Lane parcel for an example still too. If what the town really wants at the time of annexation is a manufactured home park, that is very certainly something that you could identify in the IGA. It flags it to people who want to buy that property and tells them what the town wants and expects to see. So that's really similar to what has been done with some of the other parcels that are new to the new to having the door open for annexation for them. I don't know if that was helpful or not, but I'll stop there.
Continuing maybe with this process, Sunny, at this point, do you have any specifics or general things about the IGA that we should be looking at? Or?
No, I'm just following along. I'm just kind of getting an understanding.
Okay.
What's going on? I'm fine.
Martin, do you have any specifics or general topics related to the IGA?
No, not really. I just think it is an opportunity that's, available to define some parameters around this stuff. It doesn't always have to be based solely on income.
Right.
It could be based on things such as clustering development and keeping open space above it, things of that nature. So we can't really just focus on affordability. It's got to be a bigger picture scope than that.
Yeah.
Barney has spoken before. I've heard him speak in the PCDC meetings online about some of the, I guess, hidden, what's the right word, Barney? Facts around our situation with affordable housing and how per capita we're doing pretty good. Some of that, we always need more, don't get me wrong, but so those kind of things, it's got to be a bigger scope than just purely affordability.
Also, just the definition using AMI as the definition of affordability is also has its own trappings. Because it's typically the way it's calculated is based upon like a concentric circle within a mile or 3 mile radius of where that particular parcel is. And so if you're looking at the average median income of a mile or 3 miles in lines, you're considering a huge swath of the population. You have to look at all of the taxable income in that area, and like a little tiny neighborhood of millionaires can jump that number way up, and all of a sudden, so like AMI is a tricky thing in the affordable housing space, which I am professionally involved in, because it's kind of a broad measure. So it's hard to say like this is the best way to determine if this place is going to be affordable for someone in Lyons. Like, can a workforce housing person that is going to run main stage, like as a dishwasher at main stage, which is a necessary function for main stage to be open as a business, are they going to satisfy the AMI requirements? So is that the best measure? And we're locking that in as the definition for affordability, when it maybe could be more elegant than that.
Right. I'll just piggyback on what you just said. I just did an appraisal at a development up in Estes Park called Wildfire, And it's a mixture of condos, single-family homes, some mixed use. And the developer was required to put aside, I think it was 3 condo units. It was 24 units out of how many units they developed, I think 150. And those were not deed restricted, but they were restricted to be sold to anybody working 30 hours a week in the Estes Valley. They had to meet that requirement. So that's what I mean by there's different creative ways to
Yeah.
set some of this stuff up.
So challenging that, maybe that AMI as the main thing, maybe there's something more elegant that, or can leave it open to interpretation for what makes the most sense based upon how the affordable housing and accessible housing conversation evolves over time. Like AMI is the easiest, it's the broadest, it's also the bluntest.
And if I could add on to that, and this is both a question and I think a challenge. So I have spent weeks and weeks and weeks looking for some authoritative source that documents the requirements for, or the suggested requirements for affordable housing other than income measures.
Yeah.
Where should it be located? What kind of services should it be by?
Yeah.
We have people living in affordable housing 3 miles out of town.
Right.
And they struggle because they don't have a vehicle. They walk to town. They're always looking for rides.
Right.
So just saying because it's affordable makes it affordable housing.
Right.
And I think, you know, Sonny's a good example. If we put a housing someplace where he doesn't have sidewalks to go on, or if he's too far from town, that's the hard thing, right? I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing you'd rather not be down a gravel road.
There's so many issues right now, and then I've got people right now banging on my back because they say it's affordable, and they said, this is so far from affordable, it's pathetic, you know, because they say it's affordable, but then when you look at the numbers and you go, this guy's got to be the most expensive affordable housing complex in the state of Colorado.
Right.
And then, because we know we're in Lyons, and then, okay, well, what do we call affordable? And then, okay, are we affordable in downtown Denver?
Right.
Or are we affordable in Cherry Creek?
So my ask, bear with me one second, Wendy, we'll come right back to it. My ask then, as a group, if we can't find it from some other valid source, either through PCDC, through the city planners, is that we should at least define criteria. This group is not gonna sort out the financial side of it. We have no say in what the ultimate construction will be, other than to say, for this plot of land, we think it should be either the trailers or affordable housing spelled out kind of like it does here, where a certain percentage falls into those buckets. But I don't think we can plan on solving the financial matters, but we can address the non-financial matters. It should be either a walk to the high school or on a bus line. It should be close enough to public transportation. It should be reasonably accessible for walking or whatever. I don't know what the requirements are, but it feels like we should define that. Does that make sense to
Well, I
everybody?
don't know where you would find that in Lyons. As far as a location that you can walk to anything unless you're downtown. But I always assume because it's so crazy how much money affordable housing is, that it must be some kind of legally chosen.
There's definitely
There must be.
requirements to get grant money, to get
Yeah.
funding to meet.
Right.
I mean,
It
AMI
has
is
to
used
be, right?
because there needs to be some sort of
There's a
objective
measure.
Because
And
anybody,
Boulder County
you
is a
know,
rich county, and so the Boulder County AMI is always gonna be
Yeah.
higher than Denver's
Right,
AMI.
right.
And we can also divide it down into
Yeah.
below 60% of AMI, 60 to 80% of AMI, above. There's ways we can break that bucket down, but we don't,
yeah, we don't
AMI is
choose.
gonna be,
Yeah.
we're not
It
gonna
is-
change
we're not
that
gonna
in
solve
our
it.
basis.
That's my
I think it must have to have a legal setup, and it has to
It
have
does.
been that way, otherwise,
Absolutely,
you know,
and so
no
ours
one would
is
have got
high.
money for.
Affordable in Boulder
Yeah,
County
it's
is
just
way
not-
different than
Way
affordable in
Yeah.
El Paso County,
Yeah.
And
because
that's gonna be the metric from all of
Yeah.
and it has to be, I don't think, we
But
don't
for
have
the
to do
purposes of this group, though, don't we have to consider the non-financial aspects of it?
Yes,
Qualitative.
Right? I mean, does
Well,
anybody
not
disagree
for-
with that?
I don't
not
know,
for individual
actually,
properties.
It's kind of out of the
Kinda,
IGA
yeah.
I
scope.
mean,
I mean, does it make sense? but just,
I think we're focusing too much on affordable housing
Yeah,
personally.
I do too, and it's like, it's kinda,
I don't disagree, but just bear with me, and this is on the topic, because it's directly related to the IGA document that we're being asked to look at. There are those parcels that I just called out, whether it's the Boone property, the common property, the other property, have very specific requirements for the density and the amount of affordable housing in those properties. Bear with me, I know you've got a comment, just hear me out. Look at those properties and go, fine, let's assume that we could actually build houses on those properties that could be affordable, which is not possible because of all the utilities. But let's put that aside. Does it make sense to put affordable housing a mile and a half outside of town, up a hill with high risk? Like, don't we need to consider those factors before we recommend that?
I agree with you, but I think what you're calling specific requirements all came from, like, if you were a builder, what could the county or the city get away with telling you have to do if you want to build on that property? Well, if you want to build $3 million houses on that property, what generally is legally acceptable is to force you to make 25% of your property this and 25% of your property that, and then we'll let you build on this piece of property because this is legally the best we can force you to do. I think that's what it is, but I'm still kind of an outsider here.
But why would we make a recommendation to put, and again, I think we're spending way too much time on affordable housing, but it's a big topic, right? And it's gotta be a filter over this. But why would we say, we wanna annex this property and we wanna demand in here as a right to be annexed that it's 30% affordable housing?
Because I think they figure it's better than nothing, and some people don't have
But it's not
mobility
that
issues. That's my guess.
we have to recommend to the board, I believe, and you guys, I'm only one voice of the 7 here, right? I think we have to make a recommendation to the board that says you have to use some logic. This isn't about a land grab to designate affordable housing if it doesn't make sense, when we have property that does make sense.
Well, what makes sense, because they're really, I mean, the
That's
whole
what
ground downtown is the only thing where it's walkable to anything.
You can walk anywhere in Lyons, you guys.
A mile.
I
You can walk a mile, you can walk 2 miles. Get on your damn bike, go 4
I'm
miles.
gonna go
whatever.
with him. He's right. I had my meniscus taken out. I have a hard time making it to the car. Sonny has a hard time. So some of us have
Yeah.
mobility issues and it is an issue.
They're so in the
So
weeds.
anyway, I think what we need to do is look at all the properties. That's the bottom line, and say, in the IGA, it calls for this. Does this make sense, or do we want to recommend that the board do something different with that property? The next property, does this make sense, or do we want to recommend something different? Why is this property not in? Let's make a recommendation. That's what our job is to make those recommendations, but we have to get into the specifics that's in this document. We're tasked with not starting from scratch. We're tasked with making recommendations to update and correct or make this document more acceptable. Does that make sense?
It does. It's just we need to make sure we make our recommendations legal.
Well, we will. I mean, but first we have to see what we want to do.
Well, I think back to the original discussion, we're setting parameters around these parcels, and
Correct.
suggestions.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be solely based on AMI, they can be based on cluster zone and things like that. But there again, the parameters, suggestions, they could be and will be reviewed upon anybody submitting for annexation.
Right.
So
And the
I
board
mean-
decides.
basically a discussion around what we think is the most appropriate type and scope, size-wise or whatever, of development on the yellow parcels, I guess.
Right.
It seems to sum it up in my mind.
Yeah.
And then if there's any other parcels to consider, such as 4651 Highland Drive, AKA Shady Lane, we can discuss those as well. And then also the parcels that are upsetting people that have been changed.
Right.
But again, there's no hard and fast rules about what those parameters can be. We can be creative with those.
Yep.
Right?
So totally, and that's why I think we need to do this field trip. So let's kind of try to wrap this section up and then talk about next steps of schedule and then talk about community input. What I just sent around, and I was gonna try to go through this today, but I don't think we have the luxury of time of asking you to indulge me. And for David, I'll send you a copy and you can circulate it among the board. Andrew has a copy as well. But what this is this is my assessment, right? So any of it can be challenged, it can be thrown out, you can tell me it's crap, whatever. But this is my review of the draft IGA document versus the 2012 document, understanding Julie's point about it's not meant to necessarily be the same, but there's some really good stuff in the 2012 document that was meaningfully changed in the 2024 version. A lot of it is words, but in my mind, words matter, right? Because it sets the tone, it sets the intent, it sets guidance for the board. And the best thing to do is just leave it with all of you. Again, I will email it out, Andrew, so you can make it part of the whatever we need to do from the record. But it starts to bring, in my mind, clarity to some of the issues that people are talking about and are concerned about and are wanting to burn down the house about. So that's what that is. Anything else anybody sees we should add to it. The big piece that's not defined on here is looking at the specific parcels. And I don't know any other way we're going to be able to do that other than to get slightly more detailed maps and to take a field trip and go out and go, oh, this is the parcel we're talking about. It's recommending, and the IGA calls for this. Do we agree with that or disagree with it? Should we make a recommendation on it or not? And I think we just have to do that for the various parcels, if that makes sense to you.
I just don't understand. I guess I do agree that seeing it could be interesting, but I don't understand as, just people looking at a big piece of land, what we can really ascertain apart from, oh, this has a nice view and would be good, or it's not walkable. Like, what's our goal for doing that?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Is like, what is this land that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Does it make sense for what's being recommended? Right. The other thing, and that we haven't even gotten to other data we want, the other thing is I think there's a lot more maps and a lot more data that this group needs about what are the feasible places to do development. Right. What are the high risk places from a fire and access and traffic and evacuation routes? Right. What are the logical places or their high risk places for environmental impact versus not environmental impact? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other filters that we're going to have to put into it. And I think as we start to collect and get some of this data, we can look at it. It's not just walking around going, oh yeah, an apartment building would look nice.
Actually, the Lions comprehensive plan has wonderful maps showing the hazards.
It has some good ones in there, and there's more that we can get as well.
So does the LPPA.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I want to say, it's nice for us to try to imagine what we think the high hazard areas are. We don't know, and part of the annexation process is review of all of those things. So I don't think we necessarily should be putting ourselves in the position of saying, oh, so we understand hazards, and we, 7 people, random people from Lions, are going to identify what's appropriate. That's why we have, and maybe that's where a thorough conversation about the annexation process is helpful, to see that there are actually subject matter experts who will look at those things. I don't know that that is within our purview to decide what's developable and what's not. I think that's what
only is related to the document that we're being asked to review.
I'm not even actually sure that's accurate. This is something that is a potential framework for the next 10 years of development that someone might be able to apply, an owner of this parcel might be able to apply for annexation. And then all of those other determinations are made by people who know that stuff. I don't know what's developable. Something might look hey, Lions Valley Townhomes, those were not developable last time, and now look at that, we've got a bunch of houses there. So I don't know that I'm not sure that's part of our role. I think that's what the annexation process, application review by many other bodies of experts does. I'm not sure us going there and saying, you know what, we looked at this one and we don't think you should build there is our role.
Right, I hear you totally. So it comes back to the same question we're going around with. I mean, we're a task force that's been asked to look at the 2024 draft IGA and make recommendations.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you see in the draft IGA that we should or should not be making recommendations on?
I
Or
think
that
we
you
touched
did?
on a lot of really valuable things already.
So, excuse me, can I just say something?
Sure.
I wanted to add something to
Because I want to step and say something because of what you just said, and made me think of something. And when I look at this whole agenda, we have to be smarter instead of being procrastinators. Because when I look at this whole agenda, this whole thing, I look at the whole process, and sometimes when I look at the whole role of a lot of things in the process, sometimes this whole thing, and you look at it, sometimes a 20 or 30-year process, sometimes some of these things, a lot of things, we're procrastinators. I mean, I'm not saying we're procrastinators, but some things just seem to, some things just seem to, I'm not saying we are, some boards and some other systems just seem to take time, and they, to other people, outside people, they look at us, oh, they just procrastinated. It just seems like they just take time and they just seem to lag on and just waste money. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want other people to look at us that way. We want to be action people. Is that right?
Yeah.
To a certain extent,
Well,
when it's
to an
within
extent.
our role and
Within our
expertise.
bounds, yeah.
But not
No,
all
I
of it.
understand that, because I mean, I
I'm not saying
would like
it's
to think that
appropriate
we
for
came on
development
for
or
that reason.
Yeah,
That's
fair
not
enough.
my
Yeah, fair
opinion.
enough. I get that.
So what's missing for me as a relative newcomer to this conversation and to this community, frankly, is it's hard for me to understand these proposals for like allowing for a particular action on a particular piece of land without understanding the need that the community has, both in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. Like, what is our short-term need for whatever? Is it affordable housing, or, what's our population growth? What's our need for, how many people that work downtown are seeking jobs, and seeking housing at the same time? Like, does this address those? Is this addressing it in the short term, medium term, or long term? This is a 10-year plan. I'm saying that's probably medium to long term. Like, I honestly have no idea how many units the Boone parcel could satisfy and what types of units we're talking about here. Like, so I can't say, yes, that makes sense. The Boone parcel helps to address 5% of the 100-person need for affordable housing. I know everybody wants to steer clear away from affordable housing, but the main difference, sorry. Let me finish what I said. We don't want to steer clear of affordable housing. What we want to clarify is that there's a bigger conversation about including and beyond affordable housing. But as far as I understand, as someone who's looking at these two drafts, the main changes are about identifying these parcels for affordable housing based upon average median income. So like, which of these parcels satisfy what need? And so trying to establish what the need for the city of Lyons is really important to me. So back to the data that you want to, try and understand, like, what is the basic data that we need to look at to understand what the need is, and does this address those?
And it comes, Andrew had his hand up over here, but it comes back to what Wendy said at the beginning, that the Lions, the LPPA and the housing plan, a lot of that is in there.
Okay.
And we just need to get you up to speed on it. And so let's make sure when we get to the data collection, which we need to get to pretty quick because we only have 25 minutes left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to, it is addressing a need, but again, this is a long-range planning document. What this IGA is trying to do, and since we don't have a localized housing authority to try to set these frameworks up, right now, we'll talk about the Boone property, I won't be long, but right now, this is a 50-acre parcel. So under rural preservation, right now, if it were to come into town, they'd be acre lots. So we'd have 50 houses up there right now. I know utility streets, somewhere around 30 to 50.
Water, everything else.
So what this IGA is trying to do is, instead of having, we're not planning, we're not saying, hey, we have to have this. We're saying, but if you're going to develop this piece of property,
This
this is the negotiation for housing. So they're not, I mean, they are addressing current needs, but it's more of, that's our starting point negotiation.
Okay.
If that helps any.
I asked last week what percent of affordable housing we have to our housing and what our target is, but I haven't gotten an answer to that.
Target is 10%.
Yeah, our target
Okay,
is
but we
10.
have 11%, I think I heard.
No, it's like 8.
And no one really answered your question last week,
No,
did
they
they?
didn't,
12% is Boulder County.
yeah,
So we're.
But you wanted a baseline.
I did.
Yeah, so we'll put that on our data list.
I think that's in the housing futures plan. I'm
I,
looking at it.
I think it is too, and there's some discrepancies between a few different documents, and I believe we can go back to David on that in the board, because there's some super deep knowledge of specific numbers in them, and I think we can request that for the next meeting.
So could you please do that?
Yep.
I thought about trying to request that, but I was afraid I'd break that rule.
So here's where we are, guys, just as a quick process check. We have 25 minutes, right? And this has been good. I hope you guys feel like we're starting to break the ice a little bit and kind of get things sussed out. We have not been charged with an easy task. Like, this is a big deal. It's simple, but it's a big deal. And a lot of people are going to be very interested in the recommendations that we make. And as we get farther, they're gonna wanna share their recommendations with us. But we have to get ourselves up to speed enough to be, like I said, to be able to filter that. So given the next 25 minutes, there's two big things we have to cover. One is our agenda and schedules going forward. Like, we need as best we can to try to pick dates and pick what we want to try to sort of generally do. And then the other, I just had a complete mind loss there. So we need to set our schedules, and we need to define the other data that we need. Those are the two big buckets we need to do in the next 25 minutes.
So I'll just tell you what I've already got under that section C,
Okay.
under other data that we need.
Excellent.
To review the LPPA,
Okay.
to review the housing plan,
It's called the Housing Futures Plan. right?
housing futures plan. Overview of the annexation process and everything it entails. One sheet explanation of the IGA, what it means and how the layman's version of it, which isn't exactly data collection, but I stuck it in that action box, so I'll put it back in action. So that's what we have so far. Housing future plans, LPPA, annexation information, and then the layman's explanation of the IGA, which is not really.
Yeah. And did that specifically capture Cindy's note about what is our current target and what is, I know it's
I
in
think
that
that's in the
document,
housing futures.
but we'll
plan.
make sure we identify it in somehow.
Okay.
And I would add to that list of data documents, probably a review of Proposition 123 that was passed last year.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry, you're just about to lose power.
And further data is, the town of Lyon's commitment related to Prop 123 and other communities around. For example, Boulder County, unincorporated has a commitment as well.
Was that document that you had mentioned earlier, the comprehensive thing, is that the LPPA?
The Lions.
David, did you get cut off as well?
I think our battery just went dead here, Hannah.
No, you should be up now. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I just switched over. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear just you.
Okay, it's just me.
He's the only one.
I do have a Prop 123 fact sheet I can send you all.
That
I
would be
just
great.
created it.
Okay. Are we missing anything data wise? Barney?
Maybe the ADU law, but is that 123?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, is that,
It does.
I don't know if it's a Prop 123.
It's not, it's past
okay.
legislation, but yeah, I can,
So,
It'd be worth reviewing that.
yeah,
The state level one that just passed?
Yeah.
So that's super, okay, because the one that we passed doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
if y'all could differentiate between kind of staff, what you will all want staff to provide and what you all are, as a board are gonna provide, that would be great.
Would it make any sense at this stage, or maybe it's later, to have a sort of deeper dive interview with Hannah about the whole IGA thing, or was it premature? I don't know what we don't know. I don't know what we would ask at this point, but she's available, I think, as we need her. Or as is anybody on staff.
I mean, one thing I might pipe in about the understanding the plan, the IGA as proposed. The recap that some of you gave it today sounds like you have a pretty good understanding. The document there's a lot of words and a lot of terminology, but it's a very sort of simple plan.
Actually, it's really straightforward
I
for
think
a
so
legal.
too.
Right, it's like, I
Yeah.
think we try to make it more complicated than it actually is. And one thing is you consider sort of the properties, like there's, I think, two questions that it might help to ask yourself, right? Like, the first is, what are the properties, right? Where might the town of Lyons be willing to consider additional development in the next 10 years? And then the second is, what is the nature of that development that we want? Right, so in the plan today, we see the maps are sort of where, right? The map tells us, okay, here's the areas where we might consider. I say that intentionally, consider. All the IGA says is we can consider additional annexation in these parcels that are designated as the planning area. It doesn't require the town to annex any of those parcels. It doesn't require the town to really do anything. What it allows is property owners to ask. If you are green on that map in your rural preservation, that just says, don't even bother asking. Right? So that's the first question, is what are the parcels where we will allow people to ask us for annexation? And then the second piece is in the text where we talk about what is the nature of the development that we want on those particular parcels. And so on some of those parcels, we have density, we might have some affordable housing requirements. So putting the two together, you get, okay, on this piece, we're going to consider annexation, but we want to make sure the town gets some specific things, which might be some percentage of affordable housing, or a very clear use type designation. The old IGA sometimes said, we want to designate this parcel for municipal uses or various infrastructure needs or whatnot. So I'll stop there. Oh, actually, one more quick thing that I actually do want to make sure everyone's aware of is the town of Lyons is a signature, is a participant in the Regional Housing Partnership. And that regional housing strategy goal in that document is a 12% goal.
Thanks. For affordable, and does that include all types of affordable?
What was that question?
I'd have to dig into it a bit more.
I think
But all of that document and those are available online.
So can I repeat this so I make sure I understand? Lyons has agreed with Boulder County to try to have 12% of affordable housing, whatever that is defined as. That's
right. It's
goal.
not just Boulder County. There are numerous signatories on that regional housing strategy.
Okay.
So Boulder County, the city of Boulder, Jamestown, Erie, Lafayette, Longmont, Louisville, Lyons, Nederland, and Superior. It's a county-wide effort that has agreed to that 12%.
the town passed a resolution.
That was great, Hannah.
For
Thank you very much.
12%, but we're not quite sure what
But we'll clarify that.
affordable. I mean, was it the lowest end of affordable?
I think it's anything at
Group.
80% AMI and
80%,
under it
okay.
is what I think.
So let's shift gears, because I think it's really important for this next topic before we get to scheduling, community input. I think at least one or two of our group meetings, especially as we get a little more clarity on the types of recommendations we're going to be making, should be in the evening so people can come get input. Do you guys agree with that approach or anybody?
Somewhere down the road, yeah.
Somewhere later, that's what I mean, later.
Once
down
we've
the road.
educated them on what it is we're doing.
In the meantime,
Yeah.
let me float this idea and you guys give me, like, let's poke holes in it, but we need to be talking to people. We need to let them know that we're trying to take their input, that the scope of what we're doing, I think to Julie's point, we're not the experts on development, but the scope of what we're doing is to try to, exactly what Hannah said, determine what properties might we consider for development and what is the nature of this development. I thought those were the two, those are very clear questions. Like, that's really good that she boiled down what we've just spent an hour and a half trying to do. But I would love to see us get some neighborhood get-togethers with your neighbors, whoever, I think we're all in different neighborhoods, so we could do that fairly easily. And just have an hour or two session, an hour session, and kind of say, this is what we're looking at. These are the kind of things that have come to our mind that we're concerned about. What other concerns do you have, to at least have some listening sessions? Does that seem like a good idea? Does anybody have any better way to get?
I
Just want to have an adjunct idea in
Yeah,
addition to that, because it
please.
is so hard right now to get people together. I was actually going to put together a survey that had some because I have the emails of a lot of my neighbors, because we get together and have cookouts and stuff. So I was gonna just have something that had a few questions, but a lot of free form text. And I could, try to draft something that sort of explains this. I mean, once we have a one pager about the IGA, and so anyway, my idea was to try to do this remotely.
As opposed to in person, yeah.
But
or
a
maybe some
hybrid if
combination.
we can,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is I'm gonna reach way more people with an email.
Yeah.
Because if they're out of town, if they're busy, if they can't come, if they care.
If they
And I
can,
think that's
yeah.
an interesting, that will be something that we've
Or
done
if
a
they
bunch of
even
people.
understand what they should or
If
shouldn't
they
care
understand what the
about.
process, what is this
Yeah.
about? So giving some information and saying, if you would like to provide input, I would love to get it, and here's
Yeah.
your, so.
So what you're saying, I mean, I'm so into that, because I think if this isn't done semi-standardly, we might have,
I'd be
again,
happy to share
people
what I make up.
torching, because gee, their neighborhood got to do this and my neighborhood didn't get
Yeah,
to
it
do
should be,
that.
right.
And I fear the rules, which I'm still not sure I
A one-way
understand.
survey that I send to my neighbor, that my neighbor sends back to me with they're not even part of this task force,
No,
so that
no,
doesn't
we
matter.
can-
Okay,
I
so
can
we
talk
can
to
talk to
whoever I
anybody
want.
not in
Just
there.
not each other,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
So I just can't talk to you, but I can talk to anyone.
But I like the idea of developing, we'll have our one-page sheet, by next week, we'll have that, we'll have our one-page sheet, we'll have a little more clarity on our goal. We're gonna plagiarize Hannah's words, and then we come up with, I think more than anything, we need to let people know what we're not doing.
Yeah.
We're not trying to solve the hotel issue, we're not trying to solve the hole in the ground issue, we're trying to help give feedback to the board about where we might like to do development.
And then I have this question, can it go to Apple Valley? Because
Yes,
while they don't
100%,
have a vote,
Yeah,
they're
They can,
involved.
yeah, they
I-
can.
and I've got a couple of people I was gonna reach out to down there on the same way. I prefer to do it in person, but that's me.
Yeah.
I think that hybrid of doing both would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, my street, I'll walk up and down, but
Yeah.
trying to get like everyone on
Yeah,
Stickney and Seward, and
right.
that ain't gonna happen in the summertime. So I think an email
Yeah.
for me would be more.
When do you have
I
thoughts?
personally think that we should draft one survey
Okay.
Thank you, I
totally.
think.
and
thank
send
you.
it out
Thank
to
you.
everybody via e-blast or whatever.
Oh, so you're
From the
saying to
town.
the whole town?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be,
Okay.
and then that way people can feel.
that's the way we've done this in the past for,
It'd be like-
task
I
force
thought we were trying to do
Meanwhile-
more personal connections, but
Yeah, and remember the board's gonna have broad input because they're gonna make whatever decisions they make from they may take none of our recommendations, right? But I feel like if we have enough, at least anecdotal feedback,
You can still
then
talk to
we
your
can,
neighbors,
yeah,
you know, but
Then-
I think one survey for the
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
everybody in town, e-blast, newsletter style is the way to do it.
Well, and then if we could send, like, I thought I would give our HOA president this thing and then she could do
Sure.
it, because then it might come with more power, right? So you get it from the town and then you get it from somebody local.
Right,
Where you might, oh yeah,
Like I
maybe
said.
this has something to do with me. But you know, it's gonna be a mess, all this
If
information.
you can physically, you can say, hey, you need to fill out the
Uh-huh,
survey for
right.
us. We need this information back so we can get, you know,
Right.
a decent sample. But
Yeah.
I do worry about that being a lot of.
I just don't know where to
be. I know it's
We
gonna be
7 people are
overwhelming.
supposed to sit through
Yeah,
all their
I mean, I
data.
just don't, I like the idea, but I don't think we're gonna be able to pull that off.
I'd
in the-
rather pick
the
20
weeks that
people
we
that
have.
I send something to and I
Questions?
can.
Aaron, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Having designed a lot of surveys and understand survey methodology, what, you know, we can define it in a very narrow way that says, this is what we have the ability to affect, change, and make a recommendation on, which is, as far as I'm starting to understand it, it's these parcels, yes or no, and then are there, well, yeah, like literally you could have a map with, is this parcel for this purpose, a yay, a nay, or maybe and a comment, you know, and
But the
then.
board's gonna figure, that's the board's job. Our job is to make a recommendation to the board. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but guys, we've got maybe we're gonna have 6 meetings together. Maybe, if we wanna get this done, and realistically, I love the enthusiasm, but what are you gonna ask? And what data, how are we gonna process that data?
Well, I didn't get a chance to really finish saying what I was gonna say, actually. So what I was gonna say is, if you want a really simple survey that stays within the scope of what it is that we're making a recommendation on, if we truly want everybody's input, keep it as simple as, here's the map, here's the target property 1. Yes, here's what is interested, this is what they want to do with it. Yes, no, yes or no. And then the same thing with the next one, go to the next one. There's 5 properties. And then you could have a blank one that's like, are there other properties within the yellow annexable area that you would suggest? And people could put the parcel number, and then all of a sudden you have as many people that want to give that feedback. We then have, I don't know, 1,000 respondents. It's not comments, it's just yes or no. And then we then choose to take that into consideration as data while we make our recommendations.
I
It's not
really
like-
want.
This is the same as the map. Not in my backyard, do it over there. Not in my backyard, do it over there. I
Right.
think it's gonna, your answer is gonna be like the last map.
Okay.
No, oh yeah, over there, because I don't live there.
Right.
I think we're gonna get the same, I mean, I love your idea, but I think
I do
it's
too.
a setup for just, you know, not here, over there.
Yeah, because obviously you had a lot of people who didn't want those townhomes over there that lived over there in that neighborhood.
Well, ours didn't care.
Yeah, well, yours didn't care, but the people over there by the
And I went to
high
one of
school
those
didn't care.
meetings on the other side and
Yeah.
wow, it was violent.
But I'm just saying that the ones over there by the high school.
They did, they had an opinion.
They had a big opinion, right?
David, are you still online there? Is he still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have any thoughts about how much or how we should collect input based on what you know you're gonna have to do from a board point of view?
I mean, I like the idea of a survey, but I agree. I think time, what do you do with all the information? I think the housing study, anyway, I think if it's a very pointed survey, maybe there's some value in it, but I'd hate to see things derail because of that. I think you're heading down the right path of identifying properties, getting the conversation out on the pros and cons. And anyway, the other thing I was going to add earlier, Doug, is I think understanding from the town what the benefits to potential annexations, such as giving additional access or exit points for certain neighborhoods that right now, if a fire occurs, they're stuck there. Or if putting a new water tower with better pressure to improve. Anyway, so understand from the town what kind of benefits, and those are things that really haven't been discussed, which could come up in a tour, I think, if the right person's there to articulate that.
So I put it in the parking lot, the survey topic. I think we're not gonna be able to solve it today, but I think we should keep it on the discussion, community meetings. I think we're gonna have to get a little farther and discuss, figure that out. This one pager, the rebrand of the IGA, that's in process, so we're gonna work that. Do you wanna look at calendars real quick and talk about the next couple of weeks? We tentatively have a slot booked for 12 to 1:30 next week, same place,
Tuesday,
or
right?
Tuesday, did I say
Tuesday.
Thursday, sorry, on Tuesday, the 18th. Victoria has offered to do a tour with us. The only dates we have in the short term, we're gonna do this in the very short term, would be, Friday, tomorrow, which is kind of hard for everybody, is Tuesday evening of next week, so the 18th, from like, I think she said 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, which might be a nice time because it's not so hot. Or the following, then we're bumped to the following week on that. And I'd kind of like to see us do it sooner versus later.
Yeah.
Tomorrow doesn't seem feasible, but maybe Tuesday evening, because and do we want to do that in lieu of having our noontime meeting, or in addition to, or what do people want to do?
I would do it in addition to, we need every meeting we've got,
Okay,
and I could do Tuesday evening. I don't know what that does.
well, all we need is either
Yeah,
two of us or four of us. Is, if we only have two of us, we can do it, or if we have at least four of us, we can do it.
Well, I'm game, so whatever you guys decide to do, you just get a hold of me and I'm game.
So Tuesday at 6.
Wendy, what about you?
Yeah, I can do that.
I can-
So,
Tuesday?
I have to check with my wife, but.
yeah,
I think I'm available Tuesday. Something's sticking in my head. Tuesday at like 6 p.m.
6 p.m. And do we want to keep, so we want to, is that a unanimous thing that we want to keep the Tuesday noon to
Yeah, I
1:30?
think we
I think we need it every second we can.
It could be, you
Yeah.
can zoom in too if you need to.
That's fine.
Yeah, I have one really quick tip that can help us do some pre-research on
Yes,
these
please.
parcels.
Yeah, anything.
You guys all have your computers still open? Go to the property search website. Just like property search, Boulder County. It should be like BOCO Solutions comes up with.
Yeah, both those solutions.
Click on that and you should get a blue banner that says property search up top. All right, let's start with the most famous parcel, Boone. Type in, you could either do the parcel number, but we'll start with the address, 1117 Fifth Avenue. Does everybody get a picture of the burn parcel come up there?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, you did.
17 Fifth, okay, so now you see all those tabs on the left side? That's where all the information lies. You can click on the top one and you see a little picture of the Boone gate. And then it'll have the parcel number, it has the acres, 56.71 on the bottom of it. But since we're out of time, let's go all the way down to the bottom and feel free to click on any of these tabs. They'll open up with a ton of information. The assessment has the building information on it. It's got a 1,000 square foot home built in 1993 with a basement, and then go all the way to the bottom. This is where it gets fun, and click on other views. All right, and when that opens up, click on show oblique imagery, the blue tab. All right, and now scroll back up to the map. And it should load a really cool 3D
Yeah.
picture of the property. You want to come over and look
No,
at
I
this?
know what you're talking about. Yep, I'm with you.
Can you see how you can see all the people up here, and now the Boone property is here in 3D? Well, now from here, you pretty much have carte blanche. You can go and you can take any of these tabs on the north, south, east, west, and click on those, and it'll scroll you around. Take you to different viewpoints. You can see all the quarrying going on up there and see how it relates to where the houses are below it. You can even go, see the little hat stack there? You can say US parcels and it'll distinguish the parcels for you so you can see the outlines. Got that? And then the real fun one too is the select date. You can go to select date and you can go back in time to 2011 and see what was going on in that parcel, see if it changed from the flood, blah, blah, blah.
We're
Yeah,
All
I
over.
we're
think
really, yeah, we got a hard stop.
Yeah,
So
so that's all I wanted
let's
to
just
show you.
focus
It's
real
just
quick.
click
Give me-
around.
give me 2 minutes and just focus for a minute. Let's not talk about any of the topics but schedules. 18th, we're on from 12 to 1:30. Whoever can make it, we're gonna try to schedule the tour from 6 to 8 on that same day. The following week of the 24th, do we want to do another Tuesday meeting, a Thursday meeting? Do we want it midday?
I cannot do Thursday.
Tuesday 25th?
Tuesday.
Do you guys like this midday thing? Is this workable? I mean, I know it's the.
I might be virtual that day, or I might be traveling. Day for me, Tuesday, 20.
Would you like anybody have a different day that week?
Next week Thursday or?
The week of the 24th?
Monday or Wednesday afternoon would be fine. I can't do Tuesday and Thursday and Friday I'm out of town.
I can do Wednesday.
I think Wednesday for me, because I'll be in one
That's
of his.
the 26th, Cindy?
Do it, yeah. Are we still at noon?
Yep.
I can do noon.
And you want to, should we do noon to 1:30?
So we're still meeting on Thursdays, okay, that's fine.
No, this will be Wednesday, Sunday, and
Oh,
I'm
Wednesday?
Well,
26th.
And we'll send this all out.
Okay,
And then I'd like to propose that we skip the week of the 1st, maybe, or we do it on Monday, but there's too many people are gonna be traveling that week, I think. I know I am.
all right.
Do you guys want to try to do something that week, like on Monday, or do you want to just skip that week?
I can't do Monday.
I'm open on that Monday, but I don't care.
I'm open on Monday, but I can't do Tuesday.
Julie, what'd you say?
I can, maybe, Monday's iffy, I might be able to remote in. I'm not 100%.
Okay, Charles?
I'm traveling, but I can potentially remote in.
Skipping that week seems like a better.
Does that,
option.
you guys want us to just skip that week? Are you
Just
comfortable with that?
on the phone, you're
I have
first
the
week.
first half week on the next week after that, so.
So.
I can do the week of the 1st, but not the week of the 7th or the 8th.
Well, how many people can do it on the 1st?
I can do the 1st, it's just all but
I
Julie.
might be able to remote in, but.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do it. We can operate with less and just keep you
And if
informed.
I can't, then someone else. can
And
send
it's,
notes and
it's,
let
we're
me know
being
what happens.
videoed, and I don't know who
Sure, I
puts the
can watch
videos
it
up, but
afterwards.
if you have to. So let's do the 1st. What time do you guys want to do it?
Noon's okay, but whatever.
On the actual first,
Yeah.
July 1st?
Yeah, Monday the 1st.
Oh.
Potentially, I just need to.
Yeah, I know. And again, I get it. And if some people can't make it, it's just gonna happen. We're just gonna have to deal with
Yeah.
that.
Better keep.
Barney, I know you'll attend if you can, and we'll coordinate with David.
Okay, I really have to, because I have to walk home for 2:30, but I'm pretty free the rest of July, so just let me know what you guys. decide,
Okay.
And I
All
will
right,
be
I
able
just
to.
gotta figure out the time. I gotta be in apartment that day, but I don't
Sorry,
know what time of day, so I just gotta figure out.
On the 1st,
Yeah, I just don't know if it's at noon, I mean, in the morning or in the afternoon, I just gotta figure it out.
well, let us know.
Let
We
us
can
know,
try to pound
yeah.
So should I put noon soon?
Let's put
Yeah.
12 to 1:30 right now, and then based on Sunny, I'll put a Sunny
Okay.
note next to it.
Okay.
We might bounce it around that day. So do you wanna, I know you gotta go.
I
So
will,
go ahead and go. We'll-
let me know what I need to, but let me know when you
We decide
adjourn,
the rest.
and I'll add it to the minutes.
Later.
Perfect. We could move to adjourn and keep talking. I guess we
Yes,
can do
let's
that,
do
can we?
No.
We're still
Let's
meeting
move
next
to
week.
adjourn,
Okay.
because I don't know the rest of the
Okay.
schedule.
Okay, so that's far enough for
That's the
now.
next like 3 weeks then.
The
Okay.
next one is Tuesday, though, right?
This coming
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday the 18th.
We mean Tuesday, not Thursday.
Tuesday
This
next
coming
week, and then
Tuesday.
Wednesday the next week.
Okay,
Just
so
to make
I'll
real good.
publish it. Can I get your notes and then we can,
I
I'll
will
share.
email you the draft
Okay, that's.
that I just
That's
typed.
okay, right?
when I'm done with my presentation that I have to
Yeah,
run
that's
through
fine.
right now.
Okay, and for everybody else, if you have other thoughts and data you want, email Andrew and me and myself, and we'll figure out if it's a staff thing or if it's comes from somewhere else.
Was there any population data and growth data and trends in any of those existing requests that were made to LPPA and the
I think
housing
so.
futures thing? Because that's all I'd be curious to see in addition to.
He's ready for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think they
I
had.
saw
The housing has it.
Is AMI, the current AMI they're using in there as well?
It is.
It is. It's like 60, 61. so
We have a lot of
there's-
info.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure what they-
Right, I mean, I think it's more just like getting the process, you know, not understanding the document.
Nice job, Dan. That's a tough deal.
It's getting everybody
I
else.
had to do that before.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
I don't know if y'all haven't adjourned yet.
Oh.
Oh, that's right. Somebody moved to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I second.
There we go. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Hannah. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Ew.
Thank y'all.